had some amazing talks today. My mind is still blown from that talk on deep learning. And we're going to continue that now with a talk from ECS Digital, a consultancy that specializes in DevOps. I'd like to invite ECS Digital to the stage to talk about software testing in 2019. Thank you very much.
Oh. 22. Okay. So hi everyone, good afternoon. Thank you so much for attending our talk today. Just before I start the presentation, raise your hand if you're a QA engineer. Oh wow, okay. Cool. So our talk, software testing in 2019, is not just for QA engineer. It's for everyone who wants to know what's happening in the software testing world, whether you're a BA or product manager or a developer and you want to keep up to date with the software testing trends this year. So hopefully, what I want to achieve by the end of this presentation is for you guys to understand some of these new trends and use it back in your workplace if you want to improve your testing capacity. At the end, we all have one common goal, which is to make customers happy. So hopefully this presentation would help you. So first things first, I am Marie. I work as a continuous delivery consultant at ECS Digital. And like similar with other QA engineers, I am focused in always implementing new test strategies and always implementing new tools to make sure that I help customers deliver their products much more faster.
Hi, everyone. My name is Summer. My job role is similar to Marie. I'm also a delivery consultant in ECS. Just to give you a brief overview of what ECS is, it's a digital transformation company. We specialize in DevOps and QA. Some other good facts about ECS is that we are one of the leading meetups. We conduct one of the leading meetups, or DevOps meetups, which are hands-on. And also, we are one of the first that conducted a Women in Tech DevOps meetup. Rather, me and Marie conducted a hands-on DevOps meetup just recently. And another fact, Marie, you would be surprised to know that in the last 10 months, ECS has grown its women strength from 7 to 20%.
Cool. So let's get started. So at the moment, you'll see a blank slide. I just want to set this scenario. So imagine that you have two companies, Company A and Company B. Company B, so happy, they're so energetic because they just received their product, ahead of their deadline. Whereas Company B, they're bored, they're getting frustrated because their product, it hasn't been delivered and it's been 1 month delayed. So what I'm about to show you is two contrasting videos, just so that you can clearly see the difference between these two customers. So this is what we want for our customers. And yes, that's my 2-year-old daughter dancing to Elvis Presley. And this is what we don't want for our customers. So you could see the contrast between these two types of companies. If you are serious about implementing continuous delivery and trying to keep up with the business expectation, then continuous testing is a must nowadays.
So as software becomes the key in creating competitive advantages across all markets, companies now do not have the luxury of choosing either speed or quality when they're developing a software. Agile process has matured quite a lot, and DevOps has now entered this environment as well. So continuous deployment, continuous integration, and continuous testing are actually the key in enabling quality at speed. And out of all these, continuous testing is by far the most challenging out of them. While continuous integration involves primarily tools, it's a tool-based activity, and continuous deployment is a team and tool-based activity. Continuous testing requires not only tools and teams, it also requires individuals and services. And if continuous testing is done correctly, it is actually the masterpiece in the agile downstream processes. So how many of you have seen or written flaky test cases? I know I have. I've seen and most probably written as well. If these test cases, so to have a good continuous testing, your test cases need to be robust. They need to be strong. And in the pyramid, and basically to have a good continuous testing process as well, you need, one of the ways to achieve that is also shift left and shift right processes.
Cool. So even though shift left and shift right testing, so before I explain what the difference between these two test strategy, both of these two techniques, they have the common goal. So they want to provide the best experience to users.
So Marie, what is shift left?
Cool. That's a pretty good question. So shift left is basically putting all your testing, as early as possible. There's a lot of surveys and studies that suggest that the later you found a bug, so the more expensive and the more time-consuming it is to fix a bug. Just imagine if there's a live bug on, how many resources would have to get involved, how much of your time would have to be, dedicated in trying to fix this bug. So the idea with shift left testing is we're trying to prevent the bug as early as possible. And this is basically, we want to shorten our test cycle so that we can deliver faster. This is obviously nothing new, but then I would see that this trend would, keep on happening this year and many more years to come, especially because business expectations keep on changing.
So I presume shift right would be the opposite of that?
Exactly. So shift right is basically testing on production, and that might sound scary for some of you because why would you do live testing on production? What's the purpose of these test environments anyway? So the purpose of shift right testing is because we know for a fact that in live there's unprecedented scenarios that could happen. So there's a lot of techniques nowadays that companies are using, such as A/B testing or canary releases. So with A/B testing, for example, we're actually delivering two versions of a feature of our application based on what the customer sees. So, for example, customer A would look at variant A, customer B would look at variant B. And we collect metrics based on the performance on which design performs better. The analytics team, for example, would then collect this data and feed this back to the development team. So the advantage of this is we're developing something that the customers, would actually want. And canary releases, so this is something that we currently use at the project that I'm working on. So if we have a new feature, we don't just deploy that feature straight, 100% in the application. We do a subset of deployments so that if, for some reason, we miss a bug, we know that it's not going to affect a lot of users. So the impact would be minimal, but at the same time, we're on track in delivering something to the customers. So another technique or a test, a strategy that people use in shift left is something called contract testing.
Let's hold on a second. Before we start talk about contract testing, let me take you on a historical journey. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, we used to, I'm sure I did, I know I did, I'm sure you guys must have as well, used to test web applications that were on monolithic applications, basically. That was such a great time when there was only one database, one repository, monitoring was so easy. But those monolithic applications, the weaknesses came out when the traffic and the dependencies increased. They couldn't, they kind of fizzled out. Applications basically then started with lots of microservices, lots of dependencies, and testing these applications became much more troublesome. So there were techniques that came out was, one of them was how to test microservices was mock testing. But that is very unreliable. Then the second option was you test them against live dependencies. But that is very cost-consuming and also very difficult to maintain. Nowadays, or at least in this era, we have a third option, which is called contract testing. Contract testing, the keywords in contract testings are there is a consumer and a provider. So the consumer is the service that requires the data, that wants the data from the other service, and the provider is the service that is going to give that information to the consumer. That information is kept in a contract in another keyword, which is called broker. That contract is kept on the broker, basically. The broker can be a file system. If your consumer and the provider on the same file repository, you can keep them on file. Or it can be on cloud, Google Cloud. The third option to have a broker is to put it on Docker containers, which is very popular. So in the testing pyramid, if your integration testing is now taken with contract testing, the other way to get better test results is having a very good testing framework.
Cool. So one of the key trends that I really see taking a lot of effect this year is the rise of modern test frameworks. But before I talk about modern test frameworks, Summer, do you remember using WinRunner?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Anyone remember WinRunner?
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone knows that WinRunner has been discontinued because there's a lot better alternative tools. So for the past 10 years or so, Selenium has been the go-to automation tool. And like with Selenium, it does the job. It automates browser actions. However, it does have some problems. I've been with some clients where I always see developers being hesitant to contribute to writing end-to-end tests. And it's not because they don't know how to test. Developers are very capable of writing tests. It's because the tool, which is Selenium, even though it's very powerful and very useful in automating the tests, it's quite difficult to set up. You always face the risk of having flaky tests. It's very difficult to debug. So this is why developers don't like writing tests. So more and more companies nowadays, they're introducing like a modern test framework. So the idea is they want you to spend time writing more tests rather than setting it up or maintaining it. So companies like Cypress, Testcaf, or even Puppeteer, they are all very popular alternatives now to Selenium, and it's so very easy to use. I could say personally that I've used Cypress, and there's no going back. Cypress is so easy. You just use one command to install it. You don't even have to have a separate Selenium standalone service running on the background. It's so easy to use. They have a visual test runner, so you could see how tests are being run. You could easily debug your tests as well. And this is the same with the modern test frameworks that I mentioned a while ago. You'll be surprised as well that I think it was mentioned last year, which I think it's going to take on effect. Did the mic go? Okay. Hello? Yeah.
No.
I think the mic's gone.
Shall we carry on?
Technical difficulties.
Yes. Yes, mine's off as
Yeah.
well. So both are off. No. Hello? Yep, that's working.
Yes, fine. Okay, cool. It's back. So another tool that's coming back actually is Selenium IDE. It might sound as a surprise. Selenium IDE has been discontinued because it was only compatible with Firefox. And we know nowadays that like browsers like Chrome is the most popular option. A company called Applitools they've actually brought back Selenium IDE back to life. So you can add it as a Chrome extension, as like as a plugin, and you could easily write the test. So it's the same as before, but it's so much improved. The main problem with Selenium IDE before was the selectors were quite flaky, so you would then end up rewriting the test again. With the new Selenium IDE, there's now a robust way of identifying the selectors. It has a CLI command, so you can easily integrate it in your CI tests, which is good for your continuous testing. And it just makes it so much easier nowadays. And I could see it like happening that like this year and the many more years to come, record and playback would like come back again.
So one of the things that Aptitude tool that Marie just mentioned, at the back end, it uses AI. These days, there's this big buzzword that AI is everything, everywhere as well. And it's sort of like giving a worry to the QA testers. The main reason for that panic is the question that, is our job safe? The right answer at the moment is yes, I guess. For the time being, we are safe. There are many tools out there that are using AI at the back end, but they're still at their infancy stage. But I can see 10 years down the line, or maybe more, AI being used as a tool by testers, but not replacing testers. The human factor will always be there. I think one of the tools, Marie, you mentioned, TestMIO, about AI, yes.
Yeah, so one of the tools that definitely uses AI, in this tool is called TestMIO. So it's quite similar to Selenium IDE in a sense that it's a Chrome extension that you use, and you could easily, write your test. You could just record, your screen or your, your application under test, do some click, or any actions that you want, and it will automatically generate the steps for you. You could export this as your test run. You could easily, build up your your test pack easily. When Summer mentioned Applitools, so one of their service is they have a visual regression tool. Nowadays, more and more companies are including visual regression in their testing strategy. Visual regression is quite important because we want to make sure that what we deliver to the users looks, visually appealing. The problem, though, with existing visual regression testing frameworks is it uses pixel-by-pixel comparison. So, like Summer, if you see that there's two images and they look exactly the same in your human eye, you would expect that this test would pass, right?
Yep.
But if you're using pixel-by-pixel libraries, it's gone again. Oh, it's back. Okay. If there's a 1 pixel mismatch, your test case would fail. So this is why companies like Applitools, they're using AI to make sure that the visual testing is much more efficient. It compares the image based on what the human eye see. And as Summer mentioned, even though we have all these tools, created it using, it's basically using AI, we are still here to stay. Because with visual regression, you would still have to review if your images are what's expected on your baseline images. At the moment, no AI can replace that. You would still have a manual, input. These different tools, though, they are definitely here to make our lives easier, to make our testing more efficient, and that way we would, deliver a product that makes, customers happy.
Yeah, I think we need to adopt this change and embrace it rather than being fearful of it, just like there was a time when there were only manual testing being done and automation took all over testing area. Now it is, AI is coming, it is here to here to stay. We just need to accept it and grow with it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is the end of our talk. Thank you so much for listening to us.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about the technical hiccups there. We're now going to open the floor up to questions. Are there any questions out in the audience? Yep, questions just over here.
Hello.
Hiya.
Nice talk. Thanks. I did notice a lot of the focus was on the web testing and web application UI. So AI, like you say, I was quite interested in this slide. We use robotic arms for relay switching in hardware and embedded world. So yes, AI is needed, but it's a tool.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's more an addition, probably not, but I do have a question at the end. But to add to this slide, I think it's not about tester not having that role. I think it's growing the tester's role.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
test perspective, the test mindset is what we all need.
Yes.
Yeah.
And probably we do different things. DevOps, for example, is
Yes.
completely a QA-driven activity, but people look at it as a developer's job, but that's not true.
Yeah.
And automation testing is actually a development, code development. And
Yeah.
quality. That was something I want to add to your slide.
Yeah.
In terms of questions, that was my question. Like state of the art, you know a lot of web tools exist, but in more bespoke software and embedded hardware-dependent API type testing, microservice type testing, would you reckon it's more of in-house framework development, modular development, and how do you talk to clients who have bespoke processes, like who are not ready to adopt the market tools ready?
Yeah.
How would you fit them in their infrastructure?
So with everything, it depends with what your client needs. So if that company who has a bespoke application, if they're using, because I'm pretty sure they are using some sort of API where they communicate in a microservice. So as Summer mentioned a while ago, you could utilize things like contract testing, which doesn't even uses AI. It's just a simple contract between consumer and provider. So you could leverage those types of testing. If you can't do it on the web, you could always try to pull it down from the test pyramid. Yeah.
Sure. Another quick one. Do you have recommendations for nice desktop automation?
Like Windows-based application. So at the current client side that I'm working on, it's mainly web-based that I have been exposed to. But on my previous engagement, we were trying to automate like a Windows-based. It was a WPF application. So rather than doing like UI tests, we did this model view model testing, which is again a type of integration testing. Because I think there are some tools available to automate like desktop application, but it is quite difficult. So if you could.
It's quite horrible.
Yeah, so if you could try to find alternatives, because this web base types, they always communicate something on the integration. So as long as you're doing something on the integration, and then at least you're like automating something on your tests. Yeah.
All right. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Are there any other questions from the floor? So one question from me. How is a company to stay up to date with the latest technologies like testing, machine learning, blockchain contracts, and that type of thing? Is that something that you train on, look at what you need to test in the future?
So if it's a question.
Could you repeat it?
The question is around how do you keep up to date with testing technologies that are newly being released to market? So I can see test API services.
Yeah.
Are you looking at how you might test machine learning or blockchain smart contracts? Have you got a view on that in your organization?
So I can't speak because I don't have much experience yet with tests.
Yeah,
Personally.
yeah.
But there are some colleagues of mine internally who are trying to do some AI, form of testing where they're actually testing the algorithms itself. But
So there is definitely, it is happening in our organization.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if I could get another hand here for Maureen Summer.
Thank you.
ECS Digital will be available at the Speaker's Corner over the next 30 minutes. And then in 15 minutes' time, we're going to be covering blockchain and smart contracts, just to wrap up the day. Thank you very much.